In this video, I'm going to explain how to create a fun portrait montage. Back in the 80s, artist David Hockney started piecing together Polaroids into collages that showed a subject from multiple angles. The effect made playful use of space and time, capturing snippets of a larger scene in the same way as our eyes often do. In this project, we'll look at how to piece together our own photo joiners, based around a simple portrait. After shooting it, we've got two options. Either arrange it in Photoshop or print it out and piece it together by hand. We'll look at both methods. First, we need to capture a set of images to work with. You can experiment with any subject or scene you like for this, but if you want to keep it simple, shoot a person against a plain white backdrop. It needn't be a complicated setup. We're outdoors here using natural light with a white wall for a plain backdrop. I'm in manual mode with aperture f5.6, shutter speed 1/250th of a second and auto ISO. All we need to do is shoot the person from various angles, cropping in to different areas of the face as we go. So take a series of shots to give yourself lots of options later on. For more variety, we can move the camera position and ask our subject to change angles between shots. Once we have a set of portraits, we're ready to piece them together. Here's where our project splits off in two directions, depending on whether you want to take a contemporary approach in Photoshop or go old school and do it by hand. First, let's look at the Photoshop method. If you'd rather do it by hand, skip forwards about 6 minutes. Here we are in Adobe Bridge, and I've got a selection of images of different parts of a face here, and I'll show you how we can use Photoshop to bring them all together and create our simple montage. And you can see that I've already converted all of these to black and white for this effect. And I find black and white is a great simplifier, so with something like this it just helps to simplify what's quite a busy effect. So I'm going to highlight the first image there in the sequence, then hold shift and click on the last one to select them all, and then double click to open them. Now I'm also going to go to File, New to make a new document, and here I'm just going to choose an A3 document, so we can set this up over here if we like, or we can choose one of these templates like this, and I'll set the background contents to white and hit create. So now I've got a simple plain canvas to work with. Then I can go to one of the images here, and I could either use the move tool to drag in the whole image like this, just dragging it up to the tab and then down in to copy it over, and then I can position it where I want. Or if I like, let's just delete that, I can go back to that image, use the rectangular marquee tool to first of all select a certain area of it and then copy that area in, again using the move tool just to drag it across and into my main image. But I think with that one I'm going to use the whole image there, so I'm going to drag that one in, position it there, and notice I've got a bounding box around the image here, and that's because I've got this option checked up here in the move tool options here to show transform controls, and that gives me quick access to this bounding box that I can then click on to rotate and resize the image if I want to. So we can start to piece together our montage like this. So let's go to our next image. Again, I'll click and drag it in and then position it roughly where I want it. I could perhaps resize this layer slightly, so I'm going to hold shift while dragging the corner point of the box here to constrain the proportions. Otherwise, if I release shift, you can see I end up stretching and skewing the layer, but if I hold shift down I can constrain the proportions as I resize. So I'll bring it to about there. Another useful shortcut here, if I hold command or control and tap the left or right square brackets here, you can see I can move that layer in front or behind the other layer. If I bring up my layers panel here by going to window layers, you can see how I can tap command or control and the left bracket key to drop that layer below. The right black bracket key will drop it above. So that's quite useful when you're trying to figure out which layers work best in front or behind other parts. Let's continue dragging in a few more images here. So again, I'm just going to drag this one in with the move tool, position it there. Let's drag this one in and bring it down here. So you can see we can quickly build up our effect like this. I perhaps want this layer on top, so I'm going to hold Command or Control, Shift and the right bracket key, and that will bring it to the very top of my layer stack. I'll position it there. And then let's carry on adding other images. I think with this one, I'm just going to delete that because I actually want just the eye here. So I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool to make a selection of the eye, and then again use the move tool to drag it across and in and position it somewhere around about there, I think. And we'll just drag in a couple more images here. I want this one to sit at the bottom, so I'm going to hit Command or Control, Shift and the left bracket key to make it sit below everything else. And let's just add a couple more. We don't need to use every image for this. We can just pick and choose the elements that we think will work best. So let's just add this one in at the top here. Again, let's perhaps resize it a little bit and drop it to the bottom. And then we can just tweak things until we're happy with the overall shape like this. And I think we'll leave it there. Now, to add a bit more depth to our effect, we could also start to introduce a couple of shadows around the edges of each of these layers here. So to do this, we can add drop shadow layer styles. So once we're happy with the positioning, we can double click any of our layers here in the layers panel, and then we can add a drop shadow by checking this option down here. Now if we just zoom in a little bit closer to our image here, you can see how we're working on this layer here of the eye at the top here, and you can see I can change the distance of the shadow, I can change the spread like this, I can adjust the size, we can make it a deeper shadow or a more subtle shadow. We can even drag within the image to change the shadow. If we just up the opacity, I'll show you. You can see I can change the distance of the shadow from the other elements. So we want to bring it to probably around about there, I think, and then let's bring in the spread a little. And I think I'm happy with that. We could perhaps just lower the opacity to make it more subtle. And that looks pretty good. So I'll hit OK to apply that. And then I can quickly add that same drop shadow effect to all of the other layers just by holding Alt and dragging the effect here in the layers panel. So I can just drag drop shadow while holding Alt and drop it onto other layers to quickly add that same effect to all of those different individual layers. So let's just finish off with these last couple of layers here. And that's our effect complete. Let's take a look. So there we go, that's how to piece together a portrait montage like this in Photoshop. Now, if you don't have Photoshop, or if you prefer a more hands-on approach, why not print out a set of images? I used a high street printer to make a set of 6x4 inch prints, some verticals, others horizontal. These I laid out on a white surface. Like the Photoshop method, we can play with positions and move prints up or down, but it feels more authentic to do it by hand, and the results are more pleasingly random. Then all we have to do is photograph the prints. A good setup whenever you're shooting artwork like this is to position two equally powerful lamps either side of it at a 45-degree angle. Then set up a tripod directly above the prints and angle your camera straight down. Use aperture priority at around f5.6 and set the ISO to 100 for the best quality. Then engage the self-timer to minimize shake when firing the shutter. And here's our finished arrangement. So there we have it, that's all there is to it. So why not give it a go yourself?